Hey, everybody. I'm Jim, and this is my good friend Marcos.
Hi.
And this is a new show. The idea behind this show, it's currently untitled because we are overthinking the title. But the point of it is to share our art with the audience, and to talk about art, and to dive into art, and explore the questions in art and why art is better shared. So that's the. I don't know if you want to add anything, Marcos, to the idea of what we're doing here.
Let's jump in.
Okay, great.
Maybe it's called Alandar, from Se hace el camino al andar. You make the path by walking.
Alandar. We will definitely come up with a name at some point. All right. So yeah, so this is a really cool piece. I listened to it. I loved it. I mean, you're a really talented songwriter, singer. I think this piece really, I was really impressed by it. And so I'm happy that we get to listen to it. I get to listen to it again, and we're sharing it with everybody else. So why don't you intro this piece before we play it for everybody?
Okay, great. It's called Costly Grace. The term is from the German theologian and anti-Nazi martyr, Bonhoeffer. His phrase was costly grace, not cheap grace. And in the composition, the title, and the thesis comes up here. So here's a little text from Costly Grace: reckoning with the King legacy, reckoning with the legacy of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., that is. Some 50 years from the martyrdom of an American saint, we may also see his sins, but that don't mean that he ain't an indispensable figure for our freedom movements to study. What we've done to him, like they did to Jesus, like he just wanted to be your buddy, but he was Christ-like in what he said had to be done. He said, it's time to cash this check marked insufficient funds, costly grace. Time to face the connectedness that comes when truth and love embrace.
Well, I'm going to have plenty of questions to ask and comments to make, but I think first,
great,
we'll listen to your piece. This was a live performance, I believe, right? And
close to it. Yeah, it was like 2 takes.
Okay. It's recorded, during a live-ish performance. So I'm going to share my screen. For those just listening via podcast, you should still be able to hear well. Hold on, I don't know if I was sharing sound. Let me just share again. Okay. So this is up on your YouTube, and that's what you can see now. If you're watching this on YouTube, you're seeing Marcos de la Guagua's YouTube. Yeah, so let's listen. The video is about 8.5 minutes long. It's a really good piece. It traverses many levels. There's a little bit of everything in this. And do you want to say anything about the pianist real quick?
Oh, so that's our director of music at my home church, Trinity Evangelical Lutheran Church at 100th and Amsterdam in Manhattan. That's Mr. Horace Beasley. He's my mentor. He's my voice teacher, my composition teacher. And this work is still in progress. This is like think of it as almost like a table reading, right? Because there definitely would be some backing vocals and some live drumming, some bomba drumming in the fully realized version.
Dope. Okay, let's give it a listen, and then we will discuss. I will be muting myself.
When Dr. King stood up with the so-called trash men the night before he was cut down, he said, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place, but I've been to the mountaintop and I have seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know that we as a people will get to the promised land. Could we decolonize our king? Our king who said, let freedom ring, and provoked controversy. He was not walking in his sleep. He was not selling trucks or jeeps. He was woke, even in his dream. Before DC in 63, he was not dreaming when he wrote that the words, we the people, are a promissory note. But if we're tied up inextricably in one garment of destiny, we must finally reckon with what we mean when we say we. All I know is I know it was the blood for me. I know that it was my Savior's blood for me. We are patchwork, patched up women's work, made with love but without worth, and the logic of political economy separating desperate families. We are trash folk locked up, Rust Belt. I wondered just how Martin felt, so gifted but hurt by hateful stings, when Mahaley said, wait, talk about your dream, impromptu preempting his prepared text. Now that's the part that we remember best. Jobs and freedom was the point of the march, but maybe Mother Mahalia thought, to change minds you got to change hearts, access the pathways through which passed blood. She knew about the power in the blood. My mother taught me to know it was the blood for me. We're a patchwork quilt of destiny. We celebrate our king's birth, not his return to the earth, because terrorism is not noteworthy. Before Pontius Pilate, you could already define it as standard peacetime imperial practice. Crucifixion was quite common under Pilate. He was fond of how the terror enforced his authority. When Jesus took the cross, the empire lost. It was a cosmic realignment of who is the boss, at least in as much as we may, resisting the inertia of how things are done normally, accessing an erstwhile interiority, actualize existence in this universe morally, arduously, loving our neighbors, harmless, not helpless, but hopeful, 'cause the outcome's already carved in the hands of my Savior. Oh, my soul, I know it was the blood for me, in defiance of the empire's brutality. Some 50 years from the martyrdom of an American saint, we may also see his sins, but that don't mean that he ain't an indispensable figure for our freedom movements to study. But we've done him like we did Jesus, like he just wanted to be your buddy. But he was Christ-like, and what he said had to be done. He said it's time to cash this check, mark insufficient funds, costly grace. Time to face the connectedness that comes when truth and love embrace. Pilate washed his hands of it. So this blood is on me, blood shed in love, defiant to set us free. What does it mean to know it was the blood for me? I'm astonished by the grandeur of this love for me. It was the blood to set us free. We're bound by blood, like family. We are blood family. I know it was the blood for me. We're family. Without you, I cannot get free. For the Spirit of the Lord's upon me, for God has anointed me to bring good news to the poor and let the oppressed go free, and recovery of sight to the blind and those blinded by hate and fear. For this is the year of Jubilee. Oh, death, where is your sting? Long live our King. And the King of Kings. And nothing can make it right. But will all this blood have been shed in vain? Or will we as a people finally get to the promised land? Lord, tell me, will we as a people finally get and actually let everybody get to the promised land.
I wrote down a lot of notes, just impression wise. Your passion really comes out in this, your devotion, your inspiration. You know, one of the reasons I really like King is because for King, I mean, obviously he was motivated and inspired, and even more so by Jesus, but also by Socrates and also by Gandhi. And it just shows the generational, the way that inspiration and sacrifice can inspire for generations. And I see that in you, and it's clear how that sort of, especially religious devotion, can inspire so much bravery in the heart of darkness, as King was. And so if I can just, I think, I mean, I wrote down a lot of notes, but I think, you know, I mean, we want to keep this not too long. So I'm not going to ask you everything here, but can you just talk a little bit about maybe King? This might seem like a stupid question, but like, why is King so inspirational to you? And, you know, why do you think we need him today?
Sorry. Okay, so I mean, there's so many answers to that, right? So I guess I'm trying to be economical. King is a patron saint of these United States of America. If there is a United States, if there is to be a United States of America, I think, and his the pending questions that he still poses through his through what he did in his life, through his organizing efforts, through his speeches, through his written words, even his inquiries, even the pending questions that he poses in the things that he wasn't successful with, are some of the key questions, are indispensable questions, right? If there is to be a we in, you know, which is like, right? Is that the first word of the Declaration of Independence?
The Constitution. I think it's the Constitution. I think the Declaration of Independence is when in the course of human events. I'm not Googling this, so I might be wrong. But
okay. Well, then there is to be a we and we the people. And you understand what I'm referring to when I say we the people, right? Yeah. So if there's to be a we and we the people, the questions that King poses, the challenges that he poses, have to be addressed. And I'd like there to be a we, and I feel I can't feel a wholeness in myself without a sense of kinship with my neighbors and my country and my world.
I see. So when you say there is no we, you're saying the mentality of unity, of one of the things you bring up in this piece is the idea of blood, the idea of family. And so what you're saying is that's what we don't have in the United States right now.
Well, right, so there's also the phrase more perfect union in the founding documents, right, in order to form a more perfect union. I don't know if you need to say that we don't talk about what we don't have. It's like what we do have is what we do have is a lot of things that shred human relationships. And so to try not to get like too esoteric, let me try to go back to the text, right? Yeah. So there are just a ton of endpoints for me that he I feel like a trash man in some ways. I feel disposable. I feel like I've yeah, and when I was a kid, that's definitely what sanitation workers were called. And you know, Dr. King is organizing or standing with striking sanitation workers in Memphis when he's killed. And his last speech is he talks about, I've been to the mountaintop and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know that we as a people will get to the promised land, right? So basically, like, I'm just saying, do you want to be in that we? That's really what I'm saying, right? So I'm not making any declaration about this isn't a scientific survey of the social conditions in the United States, right? But if you want to be in that we, and if you do, let's think about that. Let's think about what does it mean, you know, to sing Amazing Grace, right? That's probably the most popular sacred song in the United States. But Amazing Grace is costly grace, especially in the origin of that song, by the lyrics written by a slave trader, a participant in the transatlantic slave trade, who has a conversion experience and becomes an abolitionist, right? Yeah. What do we mean when we say we? And what are the consequences of community?
Mm-hmm. Right. So another thing that you did is you mentioned his last speech, I forget what it's called, like the Mountaintop speech, colloquially referred to, and it's very, very inspiring. You know, if you just pay attention to his eyes, you know, alone in that, they're so, to me, they're so telling, because given everything that he's been to up until that point, I mean, he had almost been, I mean, there was an assassination attempt on his life beforehand, and he almost died, right? I think there was a famous line, something along the lines of, the doctor told him,
if I had sneezed, I would have died. Yeah,
exactly. A woman stabbed him. And so I feel like he knew so much, and there were probably things that he had gone through and he had seen that only he knew. And well, I'll just leave it at that. I mean, there's some interesting stuff if you read about the suicide note that was sent to him by mail, allegedly by the FBI, saying they had a recording of him cheating on his wife, and they would send that recording to his wife if he didn't kill himself. So yeah, I mean, definitely I find his death mysterious. But like I said before, I think there's like bravery in this, I think, costly grace. And I want to return to this idea of costly grace, what makes it costly. But and I guess really the cost here you're saying is blood, because you're saying the blood is what connects King with Jesus, and you make a lot of similes, a lot of metaphors between their two lives. So I guess yeah, if you wanted to say something about that, I feel like I was on another train of thought and then I jumped ship. So my bad. But is how deep does that connection
I raise a view of the crucifixion as not being something that like God wanted or Jesus wanted. It was the state's decision about killing Jesus, and crucifixion was actually common under Pilate. It was a way of enforcing state authority. And then, yeah, like, but what Christians experienced in the resurrection was the scariest thing that Rome had to throw at them was no longer was floating above my head now, right? Was a sign of life to them. The cross, meant to be the most humiliating death, was a sign of hope and life for the Jesus movement. And it's problematic to say anybody died for your sins, right? But I know that King took all this stuff very seriously, right? So I'm just trying to take it seriously too. And think seriously about the idea of a grace that sets us free. Think seriously about a hope of freedom, about living in freedom, and then seriously about what is freedom in community. It's not, I guess that's the costly part, right? It is about freedom, but it's about a freedom that's about we being free, not me being free.
What I wanted to end with is, like, I feel like you kind of touched on it already, but if you have anything to add to it, let me know. Like, what actually is the mountaintop, right? What is it, and how do you think we get there?
Well, the mountaintop is kind of nothing, actually. I mean, it's nothing apart from the vision that you have. I think there's sufficient grace available to you that you have mountaintop experiences in your everyday life, right? Jesus says, King says, I've been to the mountaintop and I've seen the promised land. He's comparing himself to Moses' experience of the liberation from enslavement in Egypt, which is a tragic experience. Personally tragic, right? Because Moses meets God in the mountaintop, and that's formative, but he doesn't get to the promised land. He dies before the people reach the promised land. And the tradition about that is that it needed to be a new generation of the promised land. No one who was hierarchical way of enslavement could live free in the promised land. It had to be a new, experience. So the mountaintop, I think, is accessible to everybody. And the promised land may always be out ahead of us, right? But the mountaintop is any moment where you can have a vision of, I'd say, just really open-ended. What's abundant life for you in a way where your joy doesn't come at anybody's diminishment, you know, that your joy is a part of multiplying joy in the world. Your freedom is a part of multiplying freedom in the world.
And if I can extrapolate from your song and what you're saying, I think how we get there, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like, you know, you look at Jesus, Socrates, Gandhi, King, it's through sacrifice, right? It's by putting other people ahead of yourself. And, you know, when you do that, it's hard not to be woke even when you're dreaming, as you put it. So, I mean, yeah, I think that's great. If you wanted to add anything else, like about your piece that I didn't ask, feel free to do so.
I'd say is this is Dr. King has a unit, a speech that he gives where he talks about your life's blueprint, and my life's blueprint is in my notebooks. It's in my songwriting, and this is one of the nicest. One of the nicest blueprints I've been given the grace to work on, and I hope it gets to. I intend to keep building it out, and God help me and anybody else who wants to support this. Let's stay in touch about it, because eventually this could. Right now, this is a part of a cycle of songs I have that reflect on figures that you could think of as saints, and then so that's sort of the comparison of them. Could be interesting, but the idea would be to develop this. I have two other movements of just costly grace sketched out in my notebooks also. So it would be like kind of an oratorio, a dramatic, sacred reflection on Dr. King.
That's beautiful. I'm glad that we have this. I mean, King is not very divisive. I was gonna say we have this inspirational figure in common, but I mean, you know, if you have a problem with King, like maybe you just have a problem. But anyway,
Well,
this is.
but certainly, I mean, as you mentioned from the FBI, you know, he was as hated in his time as many contemporary, you know, people who challenge the status quo.
Yes. So next time I will share a short story. I think I'll share. I'll start at the beginning. I'll do my first the first story I published, a science fiction piece. So yeah, thank you for listening. Subscribe, like, leave a comment. People on YouTube are very nice. Generally, at least I have found that.
Awesome.
So, I mean, some people say that the people on YouTube are terrible, that the YouTube comment section is terrible. I think some of that is the garden that you cultivate and the people who come to you. So much appreciated. Much love. Peace.